Many of the wrestling territories that we have covered have all ended for a very similar reason, but Big Time Wrestling has got a very unique story, some very unique action, and we want you to stick around to the very end to find out all you can about Roy Shire, Big Time Wrestling, and how they made a difference to the territory system. I'm Bobby Munson. This is Ring Respect Radio, and boom, it's Thursday night. It's party time. And unfortunately, it's so damn cold here in Saskatchewan that we've got some technical difficulties going on because damn you, Rogers, and your tower not being able to survive these deep freeze temperatures. So unfortunately, you only see my mug on the screen, but I am here on the phone with the man with the angelic voice. He's Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes. Happy to have you still here with me, brother.
All right, brother. Happy to be here on another Thursday night for Ring Respect Radio. And hey, it's a little bold. All the viewers, you guys don't have to look at me this week.
You bet. We got Zach Minger in the chat saying happy early birthday. I think you mean belated birthday, Zach. My birthday was actually last Saturday there, but thank you very much. I do appreciate you. But yeah, Papa Smokes, it's unfortunate when the weather is this extreme that it messes a whole bunch of things up. But this is, we talk about how cold it is here where we live, but this is whole new level of cold that we got going on here tonight.
Yeah, it's not a joke whatsoever. It's going down to minus 50 Celsius tonight. I got things to do tonight. I'm going to be out and about. If you're Canadian, you don't let it bother you, but whoa, it is cold here tonight.
Oh, yeah, you bet. I hope you're somewhere warm if you're joining us here from the prairies. But if you're somewhere else around the world, I hope you're enjoying some nice, beautiful weather, sitting down on a Thursday, grabbing yourself a drink and ready to talk some wrestling. But before we get into the main topic of tonight, which is Roy Shire's Big Time Wrestling out of San Francisco, we're going to talk just a moment about our own Prairie Pro Wrestling, because tickets are on sale for our February 21st show, the first show of 2026. I know it's not going to disappoint. Looking forward to seeing the nation out there. Tickets are still available. I can let you know that. And yes, Papa Smokes, I am excited about it. We also have the Mangler joining us here in the chat saying happy Thursday, gentlemen. Happy belated birthday, Munson. And hello to the angelic voice of Papa Smokes. Yes, unfortunately, Papa Smokes with the technical difficulties joining us here on the phone. So I'll be holding the phone to the microphone all night long. So make sure you join us in the live chat. Keep this nice and lively. But yeah, Papa Smokes, PPW right around the corner. And it doesn't matter how cold it gets in Saskatchewan. Anytime there's a PPW show, things are hot, hot, hot.
And you remember last year, Munson, we had a couple of cold shows in the winter. It didn't calm the fans down at all. They all came out. They all had the same fun that they normally do. Puffs at halftime outside and all that stuff. I have all the faith in the world in our fans. They will not miss a show by PPW.
Not at all. No, they are going to come out in numbers. I guarantee you that. Again, get your tickets now while you still can. And you're not going to want to miss the action. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. But we're here to talk about some old school wrestling. We're going to get to that here. We have also want you to stick around because we got a really cool show lined up for you next Thursday night. And we want to talk about that as well. But stick around to the end. You're going to find out who our very special guest is going to be next Thursday right here on the channel. But yeah, Papa Smokes, as always, we're going to get into the trip through the territories portion. We're going all the way over to San Francisco, and I know you've got a whole lot of notes and a whole lot of information about the lay of the land and the history of San Francisco.
You better believe I do, Munson. We're going to talk about San Francisco wrestling in terms of the great state of California. It's a very large state, but really there were only two major companies running during the territory era. We've already talked about NWA Hollywood down in Los Angeles, but today we're going to go to Northern California in San Francisco and Sacramento area. So anyway, San Francisco is the 13th largest city in the U.S. by population, just over 4.5 million people. Prior to European settlement, the area was occupied by the Yelamu Ohlone peoples, the Aboriginal peoples of North America. The city was settled in 1776 by settlers from New Spain. What a year that was for American history, 1776. So we're going right back to the old days of America. That's how old this city is. Now, it was called the City of St. Francis in Spanish. It was also under Mexican control at one point. Became an official city of the U.S. in 1846. It had been a small settlement before that. Now, the gold rush increased the city's population greatly, stimulated the whole harbor area, which is one of the main bread and butter of San Francisco, being a harbor towards the state of Hawaii and other areas in the Pacific Ocean. In 1906, a huge earthquake hits the city, causing major fires. 3/4 of the city burns down. This is famous San Francisco lore. There have been a lot of cities with a lot of big fires that happened in the days before. There were good firemen and fire departments to put that stuff out. So 3/4 of this city burns down over several days, including the city's core. San Francisco rebuilt and became a city again. We go now to the Great Depression of the 30s. San Francisco wasn't heavily affected by the Depression of the 30s. It had many natural resources, and the gold rush had also brought a lot of money into Northern California area. Now, there's a lot of features, physical features and man-made features that San Francisco is famous for. The Oakland Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge were built in the 30s, marvels of engineering. Alcatraz was built in the 30s as well on the small island in San Francisco Bay. San Francisco is a huge place for immigration, boasting a multicultural population, many Asian and Latin people living there. Became a cultural point for America's countercultural movement in the 60s. I'm talking here about hippies. The Haight-Ashbury district became a focal point for intellectuals, artists, and other free-thinking people in the 60s. Also, LGBTQ population known to be strong in San Francisco. San Francisco, the city, lies on the San Francisco Peninsula. Several islands included in that, including Alcatraz. Those are parts of the city. Many hills there. San Francisco known for its beautiful geography. Many, many hills. But the area is still prone to earthquakes. Still close enough to that San Andreas Fault that it gets a lot of tectonic activity. And culture-wise, San Francisco is home to several major sports teams, including the San Francisco Giants of Major League Baseball, San Francisco 49ers of the National Football League, the Golden State Warriors of the National Basketball Association. So there's a little bit of background on the city of San Francisco. It's an artistic city. It's a beautiful geographic city and the home to much interesting culture, including what we're going to talk about tonight, professional wrestling, long and interesting history.
For sure, yeah, that's a great way to start things off there, Papa Smokes. Melball joined us in the chat while we were talking there. Say good evening, good evening, Bobby, and Smokes in speakers. So Smokes is in the speakers tonight. But yes, it was a great way to kick things off here. But yes, you want to talk about the wrestling. We want to talk about big time wrestling, Papa Smokes. We want to talk about Roy Shire in particular. We're talking back to the early roots, even the 50s and the 60s. Roy Shire, the promoter, known as quite the showman. And that's kind of where big time wrestling really kind of got its flair and the showmanship of professional wrestling. A lot of that lied in the heart of big time wrestling and in Roy Shire himself.
Very much so. Roy Shire was one of those promoters that really knew how to throw a big show. And he had a great thing going on with big time wrestling for a long time. But to really get the full story of that, we have to go back further than that to the promoter who started it wrestling in San Francisco, and that's Joe Malcewicz, born 1897, died 1962. I'm sure you did some research on Joe Malcewicz as well, Munson. He was interesting.
Yep.
He was a wrestler himself who eventually became a promoter.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, no. So going back that far, and again, it's unfortunate that he didn't get to take it any further. Lost his life a lot at a too young of an age.
For sure.
Yep.
But he had been a pro wrestler from 1913 until the 30s, trained by the famous wrestler Farmer Burns. If you're not familiar with Farmer Burns, look him up. He's one of the first ever world heavyweight champions located in the United States of America. Very, very famous wrestler. Back when they used to do matches in rounds, and there would be so many rounds, they would have the outdoor ring. When the night started to fall, they would pull up all the old cars, all the old Ford Model Ts and such like that, put the headlights on so that the fans could see. This wrestling looked a lot different than the stuff we watch nowadays, much closer to a shoot style grappling. Probably a lot of the matches these days were shoot style. The wrestlers being known as hookers, as we know, for getting their hooks in guys and making them submit. But at any rate, Malcewicz had been trained by Farmer Burns, challenged for various iterations of the world title, once against the famous Joe Stetcher. So Malcewicz of some note as a wrestler for sure, not famous and making it big in the wrestling world. But once he was injured, he had a serious knee injury and retired. He became a famous promoter, really one of the foundational figures that got pro wrestling going in the state of California.
Yeah, you bet he did. Yeah, so going, we want to move on to a little bit more about Roy Shire, because I kind of wanted to go into my next bit of notes. Kind of talks about how Shire didn't even. He kind of worked outside of the territory. Well, not the territory system, but he worked outside of what was known as the connection with the NWA, and initially was known as what people would call an outlaw program when it came to his promotion.
Yeah. Now, Malcewicz, by 1949, had joined the National Wrestling Alliance and thereby had a monopoly for promoting wrestling in the area, in the Northern California and the San Francisco area. He remained a member of the NWA until 1962. He sat on the board of directors and the NWA Heavyweight Championship Committee. So Malcewicz, kind of a big player in the NWA, got a vote in what happened, and then sat on that championship committee where they would decide on who would be the next world heavyweight champion under the auspices of the NWA, who would be that touring champion who would hold the big belt, tour all the affiliated territories, defending his belt in all those cities, and drumming up business all the way around. This is when promoters used to work together to a certain extent. They would all make money together through that NWA champion. And that's how Malcewicz had his stuff set up through the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, by 1951, Malcewicz had also built a strong relationship with Ricky Dozan and the Japan Wrestling Association. Now, we talked about Ricky Dozan before.
Yep.
He was Japan's Hulk Hogan, basically. He was the most over wrestler that they had ever seen. This is in the days where wrestling was a lot more a shoot than it was a work. So Ricky Dozan, a tough guy, but so tremendously popular in Japan that he ran everything in the time before Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki took over. So Malcewicz, having that relationship with Ricky Dozan, kind of built the bridge between San Francisco and California and Japan. So those two companies trading talent back and forth and drumming up business all the way around. Ricky Dozan and Japan Wrestling Association would use the same formula that's been used in lots of wrestling companies. You would bring over gaijin or American wrestlers to play heels and then play off the patriotism of the Japanese fans. So he would bring over cowboys like like Hanson and the Funks would later do, but really any American wrestlers to play the sort of foreign menace or foreign heels. And then the Japanese wrestlers would be the heroes battling this foreign menace or this invasion of talent that would come in. And Malcewicz also very influential in trying to develop stars for his wrestling company out of other legitimate sports such as football. And Malcewicz brought up two notable stars from the NFL, one being Leo the Lion Nomalini. You know that name. He used to work in Stampede Wrestling up here, as well as all the famous territories, but also the best football player, the best NFL player that ever became a wrestler, Bronco Nagurski. I'm not sure if you know this name, Munson. He's from the 40s and 50s. He was a running back in the NFL, a very tough character, very strong guy. There's a famous story about him in the NFL. He was a running back, and on one play, he took a ball from midfield, made his run. He wasn't a dipping and dodging kind of a runner. He was a freight train. He would go straight ahead, get through on guts alone. So he bumps and bashes his way through the entire defense, goes all the way to the goal line, all the way into the end zone, but he's still running full tilt, runs through the end zone and into the cement wall at the back of the field, knocks himself over, gets up, goes back to the bench. Coach says, "Wow, that was quite the run, Bronk." Bronco says, "Yeah, but I'll tell you what, that last guy was sure tough." So, he thought the wall was the last defender on his run there, but Bronco, a famous football player and a famous wrestler as well, got his start under Joe Malcewicz in the state of California.
Yeah, fantastic. So a lot of what Shire put together too ran out of what I hope a lot of people watching this or might be tuning into this particular show ran out of the stadium, the Cow Palace, maybe one of the most famous and most notorious pro wrestling spots, not only in the territories but moving forward as well too. Some large events have happened there over time. Let's chat a little bit about the Cow Palace, Papa Smokes.
For sure. The Cow Palace in those days was on the outskirts of the city. Now, of course, the city has expanded so much, but it's not on the outskirts anymore. But Cow Palace was built in 1941. It held approximately 15,000 people, depending on the event and depending on how the seats were set up. And this became a home for big-time wrestling under Roy Shire. Very, very popular venue, very storied venue in the history of professional wrestling. And it saw some huge action. As far as the territories go, the Cow Palace being one of the most famous venues in all of territory era wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those notorious spots that continues to be used even today. Even some independent shows have been held there more recently as well too. So the Cow Palace always a very big stadium. Like in terms of wrestling, it has a very legendary status amongst a lot of wrestling historians as well as even modern day wrestling fans. The Cow Palace, one of those most notorious ones that hasn't also been fed with a bunch of name changes either. It's kept that same name where other ones have been really kind of sold out to the corporation sponsorship over the years.
And being built in 1941, I mean, the thing's 85 years old or whatever that is. So it's not the same as it was when it was built. It was posh. It was brand new. It was a very fancy arena back in the day, but of course, nearly 100 years will do anything to a building, and it's as far as I can read, it's still got that charm, but it's an old building now. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. But as far as wrestling history goes, it's indispensable. It's one of those iconic buildings.
It really is, yeah. Mangler coming in saying it's such a killer name. I love it. Yeah, it is really a killer name. I mean, you can't go wrong. The Cow Palace has a nice ring to it. It sticks immediately. Gotta love it. And what helped it stick? Not only that, I mean, they did hold some shows for tapings elsewhere as well too. I mean, television was huge. I mean, it was really the foundation of big time wrestling, a lot of it, and there was a lot of that TV show flair that Shire was putting together, and a lot of this came from pre-taped matches that he would do, put on and everything, and then sell them to the stations. He went out there, he got himself that TV deal, the first TV deal, I believe. Let me see if I got the call letters. I do not. I messed that up. I hope you got them down for us, Papa Spokes. But in doing so, his big regional reach helped him with this because he could bring in the big stars. He could bring in the big villains. He had connections with the AWA, the Southwest, the Midwest. So there was a lot of options for traveling stars to head their way into big time wrestling to make that TV show prominent and popular like it was.
Very much so. And Shire knew what he was doing too because he had been a wrestler for a long time. He wrestled all throughout the Midwest in the 1950s. He was a veteran of the territory system. He had worked for so many promoters in so many different cities and territories that he was a seasoned professional. He knew the system. So in 1959, he meets another wrestler named Ray Stevens, starts a tag team with him called the Shire Brothers. This is what they worked under. And this friendship and this association with Ray Stevens will pay great dividends in the future for Roy Shire. But he gets an injury and has to retire from physical action in the ring. So he starts promoting in direct competition with Joe Malcewicz. Mm-hmm. So, as you said, he was anyone that runs against a promoter who's already in the NWA system is considered outlaw. So despite all his good intentions, he was running against the established system and the established monopoly, which would have been a very tough task back in those days. Malcewicz had the support of the National Wrestling Alliance. He was sharing talent with all the other territories. He had that financial backing behind him. But Roy Shire, we're going to see, has a vision, has fresh ideas, and from his experience in wrestling in the whole territory system, he's got the connections as well to not just run as a lot of outlaw promotions do, scraping together whatever kind of local talent they can get, sometimes not of the best quality. Roy Shire was able to use his connections and really bring some top talent into the area without ruffling too many feathers, although those outlaw promotions were not popular back in the day because they ran against the grain of the status quo, which was the National Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, and I mean, part of his advantage too, I mean, he was able to get himself a great team behind the show itself. I mean, he had Hank Renner on the play-by-play, particularly during the 1970 kind of era. He had Pepper Martin as a color commentary, and he also had Walt Harris as a host. Walt Harris had the connection through KTVU, which was actually the call letters. I did have it written down just further down my page, KTVU, where they would broadcast big time wrestling out of, and which actually got a decent range. Like we know, we've talked about territories, Papa Spokes, where their range was very localized to that small particular area, but there was a lot more range that KTVU offered, which allowed for big time wrestling to actually expand to some further outreaches, which was not really seen as much during the times of the territory wrestling.
Sure, and that was one of Shire's ideas that was forward thinking for the time, because Joe Malcewicz had not the current vision to really see that TV was going to be the next big thing. To Malcewicz, TV was going to take away from his live gates. This is what he thought in his mind. If you give the product away for free on TV, or free in quotation marks, then people won't show up to the live shows, which we now know is not the way that the model works at all. We know that through watching the territories, and lots of other kinds of TV, that if people can get a taste of the product for free on television, they will be strongly tempted to consume the product live and spend their money at events. And that's what Roy Shire had in his advantage. He got that TV deal. He started producing the show Big Time Wrestling. He had that far reach from the TV station that, of course, serviced a large metropolitan area of what we said 4.5 million. It might not have had quite that many at that time, but that's still a lot of television sets and a lot of eyes on your product. And that really allowed Shire to pull ahead, even though he had the outlaw status on his company. He was able to really build something through the television show. That's how he got one up on Joe Malcewicz. Shire was just able to get his product out there, and through his connections in the NWA through his connections from the territory days, he was able to attract enough talent, put together a good show. And then, of course, we've talked about this in the past too. The promoter's best friend is that guy like Harris, who has the connections at the TV network or at the TV station locally, and can get you in there, and get you that spot, and can argue for your show that it's legitimate, that it can be on that channel and get a half-decent time slot, which is what Roy Shire got. Big Time Wrestling came on Friday nights. It's kind of a difficult slot sometimes, but that's what they got, and they made the best of it. It was a highly rated show in San Francisco at that time.
Yeah, you bet. And the show did well as well, too, because it was able to draw in the stars, the people that you would have read in the magazines at the time, Papa Smokes, a lot of great names. But they do have their franchise players like Ray Stevens, who you mentioned there earlier, Pepper Gomez, who was, a folk hero of the Bay Area. But it was just a long list of people that you could go on and on, from appearances from Andre the Giant to Bobo Brazil, Haystacks Calhoun. There's a lot of names to talk about in this particular area. One interesting name, Moondog Mayne, who had a very unfortunate end to his career, losing his life very, very early. I want to talk to that in a moment. Just a quick hello to Bobby Stats joining us here, Papa Smokes, saying hello to everybody, and that he just liked the video. Bobby, thanks for joining in. Papa Smokes is on the phone here with me for tonight, but we're having a lot of fun talking about this. But back to the legends that came across the San Francisco area and worked here. Look at this. We've got somebody else here. Hello. Hey, everyone from Big C. We got Big C in the house here, Papa Smoke. Big C saying hello to us here tonight. Thanks for joining in and chatting as well, too. Appreciate you being here. But yes, let's go back, because we're talking about the stars of Big Time Wrestling, the ones who graced it. But Moondog Mayne, unfortunately, coming to end early on with losing his life and not being able to go on a bit of the run that I could imagine the Moondog was going to be able to go on. He was definitely one of the stronger names in terms of consistency in the territory at the top.
Very much so. And if fans don't know him, he was a pretty sort of mid-level famous wrestler at that time. A lot of people will remember the tag team, the Moondogs, which I don't think Moondog Mayne was a part of the main tag team known as the Moondogs, which we even had a run on in WWF in the 80s as well. But a very, very cool gimmick. They were just sort of primitive wild men. They had the ripped up jeans with a piece of rope for the belt, and they had big bones that they would chew on, and they were kind of like primitive men, kind of like dogs that would chew on bones. They were a very, very violent heel tag team, though, very much to be feared and respected. And it's sad what happened to Moondog Mayne, but he was a consistent mid-card performer throughout the territories. He went everywhere, Moondog Mayne, and he left his mark on San Francisco as well.
Yeah, and I'm imagining you went and watched some of the videos that are on YouTube as well too, Papa Smoke. Some of the shows that are available there, and the moment there's actually one uploaded. The moment where they have a promo from Moondog Mayne that had been pre-taped and was airing, but then following it, that looks like it almost comes back from a commercial break. Is when they have to break the news to fans about the passing of Moondog Mayne, succumbing to his end after injuries sustained when he it was a head-on collision with another vehicle going through an intersection.
Yeah, so sad, and that's the way so many wrestlers met their end, unfortunately, because just driving in the car all the time, doing that territory life, driving long trips in between shows and late at nights and in all kinds of weather. Very, very sad what happened to him, but among all the stars that performed for big time wrestling in San Francisco, as you said, the name is a who's who of wrestling, from Andre the Giant and superstar Billy Graham, and San Francisco being in California, they had easy access to lots of luchadors from Mexico, such as the Guerrero brothers, Chavo Sr. and Mondo. They had Peter Maivia coming in from Hawaii, so they had access to some of those stars. Don Morocco, Roddy Piper, even Bill Watts from out in Oklahoma in the Midwest, making a name for himself in San Francisco. But as we already mentioned, Roy Shire had his eye on one particular wrestler who he had a history with, and that is Ray the Crippler Stevens. And if you've ever watched much of Ray Stevens' material, again, through the lens of modern wrestling, it looks a lot different, but you have to appreciate the skill that Ray Stevens had. He doesn't have much of a look. He doesn't look like much. He looks like your friend's uncle that drives a tow truck or something like that. He looks like a regular guy, but he was so skilled, not only in ring work, but promos as well. He was just the most practiced and the most expert professional wrestler of his area in his day. Roy Shire realized that Stevens had what it made to be a top heel in his company. So in fact, Shire kind of built big time wrestling around Ray Stevens, planning that Ray Stevens would be in the main event picture quite frequently, would be the champion of big time wrestling quite frequently, and then would be the guy who drew the money with all various baby faces that they would feed to him, that would come in and occupy that main event spot with Stevens. And they just made all kinds of money with Ray Stevens in that main event picture. And we should at some point talk about big time wrestling's bread and butter match was, of course, a battle royal.
Yeah.
They loved to throw them. They had big battle royals every single year, and probably numerous months out of the year. San Francisco is famous for battle royals, and Ray Stevens, one of the kings of the battle royal out there, along with Andre the Giant and some of the other usual suspects you can imagine winning battle royals. But Ray Stevens, as the top heel, won a lot of those.
Oh, you bet. And yeah, we even, when we've covered the life of Andre the Giant, we know that a lot of the time that was the one thing where you could kind of get a finish on Andre, was to have him in a battle royal. He either was going to win a battle royal, or he was going to have a lot of guys send him over the top, or find some way to get him out of those battle royals. We know that that was one of the few times that Andre would ever even take an L in any way, shape, or form during a lot of his territory time.
For sure. And if we're going to talk about Ray Stevens, we should also talk about his often tag team partner in San Francisco as well, who was Pat Patterson. Now, modern fans know Pat Patterson less as a wrestler and more as a behind-the-scenes guy for World Wrestling Entertainment. He was Vince McMahon's right-hand man for a long time, both in creative and booking, and then all kinds of production of matches and stuff. And Pat Patterson was highly influenced by his time under Roy Shire in big-time wrestling in San Francisco, quite influenced by the plethora of battle royals that were held at that time. And Pat Patterson was the guy who came up with the concept that is still used today by World Wrestling Entertainment, the Royal Rumble, which kind of took the concept of the Battle Royal, but added to it by, a lot of people thought Battle Royals were a little bit boring because it just lacked a little bit of zazz. At the beginning, all the wrestlers that were in it, let's say a 20-man Battle Royal, which was quite the norm at the time, all 20 guys would walk out and get in the ring at the same time, and then stuff would start. But Pat Patterson, in his concept for the Royal Rumble, was kind of leaning on a little bit on the bunkhouse stampede, which was happening in Jim Crockett wrestling, but was to have 2 wrestlers start, and then every 2 to 3 minutes, a new wrestler enter the ring. Now, this ups the excitement of this event quite a lot because it's just a little bit anticlimactic to have all the wrestlers come out at the same time because the viewers' attention is kind of divided by seeing all the guys at the same time. But in the Royal Rumble concept, of course, having one come out every 2 or 3 minutes provides all those separate pops for each wrestler and then allows the booking of the match or the creative of the match to really blossom by when each wrestler enters the ring and in what order. Because you can do it as babyface heel, alternating them coming out, or have the heels or the babyfaces be the outnumbering the other one. Any of these kinds of scenarios can come out. You can have the people that are feuding at that time. You can have them alone in the ring, so you can have a nice little mini match with some fire. It has all kinds of potential for drama. So Pat Patterson's idea, really taking the Battle Royal and just fine-tuning it, making it so much more watchable. And I got to say, from my personal opinion, a really genius concept that Patterson came up with. It's all based on his past with Roy Shire in San Francisco. He knew that the Battle Royals could draw a lot of money, but he just wanted a different way to present it so that it had more excitement, had more longevity. It could be a longer match as well, and just got those separate pops for every wrestler as they would come in. Really a great idea, still used today. So for all you people that like to watch WWE a lot, that's a concept that directly comes from Roy Shire.
There we go. Gotta make those connections. That's the point of a trip through the territories. We want to be able to connect back to the wrestling that people love today and how it came about. And yeah, you gotta give mad props. Speaking about people in the territory, we also didn't mention that the Sheik often visited big time wrestling and had his big time feud there with Pepper Gomez during his time with Roy Shire's big time wrestling.
For sure. And a lot of the big main wrestlers and biggest drawing wrestlers in the U.S. at that time, if you traveled through the territories, you would do a route, so to speak. So for the people on the West Coast, if you were going to do a West Coast tour and you were a wrestler of some note at that time, such as the Sheik, good example, but such as also Red Blassie, Bobo Brazil, Andre, any Roddy Piper, Don Morocco, Ray Stevens, all those guys that went through there. If you were a wrestler of some note, you could do the whole coast because you could get booked in Vancouver, then you could go down to Portland, then you could go to Sacramento and San Francisco, you could go down to Los Angeles with the NWA Hollywood, then you could take a flight from there out to Hawaii and work 50th State Wrestling for the Maivias out in Hawaii. And then why not take a little hop, skip, and a jump from Hawaii and go over to Japan?
Yeah.
From the early days, you would be maybe working with Ricky Dozan and the guys, or in the later days, you could get booked by Inoki in New Japan or Giant Baba in All Japan. So what a tour that would be if you were a big wrestler at the time, including world champions such as Nick Bockwinkel or Lou Thez or Harley Race or Ric Flair. You could do that whole tour and get paid the whole way, ending up in San Francisco or LA, out to Hawaii, out to Japan. In Japan, you might stay for 3 weeks or a month to make that trip worth it. And they would pay quite handsomely to get high-rated American wrestlers over there. Then you would make your way back. You could have a little vacation, and you're hanging out in California, you're hanging out in Hawaii, and then you're drinking sake in Japan. So think of what a great trip that would have been if you were one of those high-level wrestlers at the time.
Yeah, you bet. And Bob, folks, just so you know, Astrid just joined us here in the chat. So welcome, Astrid, to Ring Respect Radio here tonight. And Bobby Stats says that he always enjoys learning new things. So you've filled Bobby's head with a little extra knowledge here, Papa Smokes.
All right. That's the idea. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for your support always.
All right. Now, before we get to, I just want to give you an opportunity, Papa Smokes, because in my notes, I'm kind of getting towards the decline, the close down of big time wrestling and how that came about. Was there anything else that you wanted to add that we haven't touched on just yet?
Well, yeah, I'm getting to the end of mine too, but there was a couple interesting things I wanted to bring out.
Yeah.
Big time wrestling. We talked about how they ran kind of the northern end of the large state of California, up in Fresno, Sacramento, even out to Las Vegas. But Shire and Big Time Wrestling even ran Anchorage, Alaska for a few years. Imagine what a trip that was for the boys.
Yeah.
That is a long trip up to Anchorage, Alaska. Very cold, very isolated place, but enough of a population that Shire thought, man, we can get some wrestling fans up there. That would be something interesting to look into. I'm not sure what venue they would have had up in Anchorage in those days, or even now. It's a city of some size. It's over 1 million people, I think. But imagine that, though, making that trip all the way up to Anchorage, Alaska.
That would be cool.
Also, I wanted to, we talked about Roy Shire's running Outlaw against the NWA, but he actually joined the NWA in 1968. So once Malcewicz went out of business, Roy Shire was able to join the NWA. So there, his big-time wrestling got legitimized in the eyes of the wrestling world. No longer an outlaw promotion, but one with a monopoly on Northern California and really just coming into its own as a real territory promotion by that time.
You bet, yeah. And now as we get to the decline, now we talk very heavily about a lot of the territories being affected by the expansion of the WWF, and not to say that Big Time didn't come as a little bit of that effect, but it the economy had a bit of an effect. The ounce that it was costing to bring all these big name talents in was starting to play its toll on Big Time Wrestling. But Roy Shire himself also a little bit of his own demise in a sense, Papa Smokes, because he lost his very first TV deal allegedly. And again, I can't confirm this, but everything I read about was that he was notorious for having that good old tobacco chew in his mouth and spitting it all over the studio floors all the time, which had led to the executives at the station to really ask him not to do that anymore. And when he refused, again, you're talking about stubborn-headed pro wrestling promoters of the territory days, he ended up getting the boot from the television program. And again, it definitely hurt the numbers of Big Time Wrestling and helped lean towards that decline.
For sure. And it shows that wrestling business is like any other business. There's the money side of it where you can still be putting your product out there and making money off of it, but it still revolves around personal relationships as well. You have to keep those positive personal relationships in order to keep your company going. And by some of Shire's stubbornness, he was turning some people against him, and the crowd started to dwindle. Even by the late 70s, by 1979, he was starting to think about shutting down his company, which is kind of early in the whole scheme of the territory system. Most of the successful territories lasted until the mid 80s, and some of them even hung on till the late 80s, but for business reasons and some personal reasons as well. Big time wrestling under Shire started to really dwindle by the late 70s, and by 1979, his TV show Big Time Wrestling got canceled. 1980, Roy Shire has a heart attack and retires. So thus the end of Big Time Wrestling just by the turn of the 80s, which, as I say, is kind of early for the territory system. He didn't go under because of Vince McMahon's nationalist expansion. He went under because of personal reasons and the fact that the town was dying for various reasons. Could it have been the economy and various other factors? Definitely. But Shire also, health-wise, wasn't able to do the job anymore. Didn't have a structure built in for someone to take over for him. And therefore, Big Time Wrestling dies in 1979. Now we'll see a year and a half, 2 years that nothing was running in that area until Vern Gagne brings the NWA in there. Vern Gagne had that relationship with, we already brought him up, Leo the Lion Nomalini, former NFL player. Gagne had a relationship with him and used Leo Nomalini as the local promoter. It established the Cow Palace as AWA territory, and also Gagne moving into another of Shire's areas, Las Vegas at that time. This is now 1981, bringing in his guys, Bockwinkel as champion, and then all the other stars of the AWA, including Jesse Ventura, Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, Hulk Hogan in the early days, and so on and so on. But also, they could never run the Cow Palace with nearly as much success as Shire had. I think it was another case of kind of like Black Friday in Georgia when Vince McMahon tried to bring WWF product into there. The fans didn't want it. They wanted their wrestling that they had grown up on. They wanted their stars. They wanted their show. They wanted their announcers. And Vern Gagne's AWA just did not take off in the area at all.
You could almost say that people talk about the loyalty you see from wrestling fans in a modern sense, Papa Smokes, sticking loyal to certain companies and all like in other companies. Some of that even comes from the days of the territories and people being very protective of their particular style of wrestling.
Absolutely. And I mean, on a local level here, Munson, imagine if next month some other company came in and started running shows at the Cosmos Senior Center where PPW runs. Our fans would just not have that at all, would they? You can see that as an easy example. They would want their Michael Allen, Richard Clark. They would want their Al Assassino. They would want their Phil Deadly. And it would be a very, very uphill climb for some other company to come in. Same thing here. The fans wanted what they had been brought up on. They wanted their local stars. They wanted their local flavor. And once Shire was gone, they just didn't get it anymore. They weren't interested in a different product.
Yeah, exactly. No. But yeah, it's been awesome talking about this, Papa Smokes. Roy Shire, a very interesting person in the world of the professional wrestling, and a lot of great things, a lot of great talents, and a lot of imagination. And what we find today in professional wrestling came from this area. Your final thoughts on this before we kind of wrap things up here today?
Well, typical of some of the territories we've talked of, it was a typical story that one promoter started running shows in the old days, in the 30s and 40s and 50s, but it just seems like a lot of those promoters didn't really have the model established to run successful territories at that time. They would kind of run whoever they could get, whatever venue they could find, whatever talent they could scrape together. They might be cards with boxing and wrestling on them. It just wasn't the perfect blueprint for success yet. And Joe Malcewicz really actually did a pretty good job in the San Francisco area But once the TV age started, you knew that there was going to be a promoter come along with some modern ideas of how to get his product out to way more eyes. And TV, of course, helped that in the wrestling business immensely. We see that story again and again through the history of the territories. Roy Shire having the foresight to see that TV was going to be the next big thing. And that's how he built the biggest promotion in California at that time, along with NWA Hollywood. That's how he got his promotion up and going. And that's how it was a huge influence for later territories and later promotions to look at and use as a blueprint for more modern stuff than that. And the Royal Rumble is a perfect example of the vast influence that Roy Shire's promotion had on modern wrestling. Shire also was successful because he was a good promoter, he was fair, he was nice to the boys, he gave fair payouts and all that stuff, so people wanted to work for him. Not to mention that wrestlers like to come out to a nice place like California where you could lay on a beach and then go do your matches and do that whole Western Coast tour, possibly doing Hawaii and Japan in the meantime. He was really situated to have a very attractive company of the top talent of the day to work in.
Absolutely. It's been awesome chatting about them as we close the chapter on Roy Shire's Big Time Wrestling. We want to talk about what's coming up here on Ring Respect Radio, Papa Spokes, and we got some big, big doesn't even describe it. I'd call it larger than life news about next week's show. We've got a very special guest joining us right here on Ring Respect Radio. We've got a live and interactive interview with New Zealand's great ape, Jayrilla. Papa Smokes, I hope we've got room for this monster on our show, and I can't wait to talk to the great ape. What a great dude. I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, you said it, Munson. Big news, big announcement, and a big guest next week. Jayrilla. We've talked about him on our various reviews of New Zealand wrestling, and with Jake Sheehan, who we interviewed earlier this spring, who spoke very, very highly of the talents of Jayrilla, both in the ring and behind the scenes, in doing all that extra stuff it takes to make a wrestling show successful. Jayrilla, very, very enthusiastic student of wrestling and very enthusiastic wrestler as well. Really getting a huge push down in New Zealand. I couldn't be happier to have a guest like that, a really up-and-coming star in his entire country of New Zealand. Wow, this is going to be really interesting. I've already got a bunch of questions in mind for Jayrilla.
Yeah, you bet. I can't wait for you to ask your questions, me to ask our questions, but most of all, for you, the fans, to ask your questions. So if you're watching us on replay or in our live chat right now, make sure that you go look up Jayrilla, get some questions together. We're going to be having you get your questions in during the live chat, and Jayrilla is going to do his best to answer what he can for you. It is going to be an awesome time, but we are getting to the end of our show here, Papa Smokes. We've been running for a good portion of almost an hour now, so I'm going to go cost the show a little bit of money, put that beautiful ticker of Papa Smokes up on the screen, and get you to tell the people where they can find you and reach out to you.
All right, everyone. Each week I'm on Ring Respect Radio on OLE Podcasts and the Video Bros Network every Thursday night. I can also be found on Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as X. I'm at Smokes_Papa. And allegedly, I'm also on Twitch at Papa_Smokes_.
My favorite part is the allegedly. That's where you can find Papa Smokes. As for myself, Bobby Munson, down below on the X, it's Real Bobby Munson. Instagram and Threads, Video Bros SK. On the Twitch at VideoBro_Bobby Munson. And Blue Sky, it's BobbyMunson.bsky.social. Where you can find me next, well, I'll be here this Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, giving you your updates in the world of sports, everything there with Andre C., possibly Ed as well, too. We're going to be talking about those NFL playoffs. We're going to be talking about Manchester United taking on Arsenal. We're going to be talking about a lot of great things, so make sure you tune into that 11 a.m. Eastern time. You can also catch myself and Papa Smokes over at Prairie Pro Wrestling's YouTube channel for a new match every single Saturday on the channel. Make sure to tune in, check it out, and see what we bring as part of your commentary team. But if you enjoyed the show here tonight. You're watching this on OLE Podcast. Go ahead and check us out on all the socials, as well as YouTube and Twitch. We appreciate if you take a moment, got any value out of this, to click the subscribe button down below. Give us a thumbs up and click the notification bell. And we want to ask you a question. What was your favorite part of Roy Shire's Big Time Wrestling? Who was your favorite wrestler during that time? And what is your favorite overall territory? Let us know in the comments below. We're always reading those, always looking to get back to you, the loyal viewers. But that's going to be it for us this week on Ring Respect Radio. From myself, from Papa Smokes, we wish you a very good night, and we will see you in a week's time. Take care, everybody.